Welcome to the Gorgeous Guru podcast. I'm your host, Day, the Gorgeous Guru. On this podcast, I'll be sharing candid commentary, practical advice, and intuitive insights on life, love, current events, and everything in between. If you're craving real talk, inspiration, and soulful guidance, you're in the right place. So tune in, get comfortable, and get ready to be inspired. Hey, y'all. Magnificent day. I hope that as you're listening to this, you are feeling well. Today, I am discussing breaking the toxic love cycle. This topic came to mind because I recently watched the final season of You on Netflix. So for those of you who don't know, You is a psychological thriller. The main character, Joe Goldberg, is a charming but manipulative man who uses extreme measures to get women he's captivated by, even resorting to murder. Yes, murder. In this final season, Joe becomes obsessed with yet another young woman. This time her name is Bronte. And Bronte actually has an ulterior motive of her own, so she is familiar with Joe and some of the accusations against him, okay? So as the season goes on, we watch this character Bronte fall for Joe's charms, even though she's familiar with some of the things he's been accused of, namely murder. She can't help herself. His love bombing and practice of portraying himself as a savior or as a Prince Charming starts to wear her down. So throughout the season, y'all, I'm screaming at the TV. I'm like, girl, don't do it. Oh my God, are you crazy? What's wrong with you? Can't you see who he is? And at some point, I had to stop and really identify why I was so emotionally invested in the show. It's because it reminded me of a time where I allowed myself to be tricked by men who I knew were not good men. You know, like I kind of went into it with some knowledge as well, intuitive knowledge, a knowing, and I ignored that knowing just like Bronte. So I would go into these situationships with men who came with these big promises and not much else. So at different points in my life, I was Bronte. I fell for the okie doke and I fell for the love bombing. So when I'm screaming at the TV, that's why. So this practice of falling into a cycle of toxic love is actually discussed in one of my favorite books. So guys, one of my favorite books in life, and I feel like this should be mandatory reading for all women. It's like the women's Bible. It's called Women Who Run with the Wolves, and the author is Clarissa Pinkola Estes. In this book, she actually touches on this experience of falling for the pseudo Prince Charming and describes why women tend to do this. So the author actually indicates that this experience is part of a woman's initiation or coming of age. She says at some point, each woman will be tempted by the predator. This predator is typically a charming and alluring individual that is truly no good. And the author says that this predator is actually a reflection of the predator within ourselves. So we all have this self-sabotaging aspect that nudges us in the wrong direction and causes us to make harmful decisions. So as I was watching the show, I was actually connecting the themes in the show to this chapter in the book, and it hit home for me. There have been multiple times in my life where I stuffed down my knowings so that I could be courted, so that I could be spoiled and loved on, or just simply lusted on by a man. And now, as a mature, wise woman looking back, I know that sometimes I was simply bored, or longing for male companionship. And as a result, I would willingly walk into the arms of the predator. I would allow myself to be captured by the predator because I wanted attention. And I wouldn't allow myself to see the truth about these people because I wanted that attention or companionship, right? My inner predator, my inner self-sabotaging nature would kind of rise up and encourage me to overlook red flags. For example, I remember being in a situationship with a guy where I was like so into him, but he consistently breadcrumbed me. And my inner predator convinced me that things would change or that things would get better, that eventually he would choose me and love me back. Because essentially, not even woman, I was going to say what woman, but what person doesn't want to be chosen, doesn't want to be the chosen one or the one that their person loves and, chooses and accepts? We all want to be that one. So I remember kind of overlooking my intuition, my instincts, just to be with him, to kind of, just hoping things would work out eventually. And looking back, I see how I allowed myself to be captured by this predator. We only allow ourselves to be captured when we lack the courage to see the truth or when we just don't want to see the truth, right? Because I don't think I lacked the courage at the time. I just didn't want to see that he wasn't the one for me, even though I knew that deep within my being. Another way we allow ourselves to be captured is when we ignore our instincts and we rush into things, right? And we don't allow ourselves to see the true character of the person. So if you're rushing, and you're like, oh, and within 3 weeks, y'all in love and y'all done did this and that. That's another way we allow ourselves to be captured by moving too quickly. Now, what's interesting is as I was watching the show, connecting the show to that chapter in Women Who Run with the Wolves, it also made me think of the Diddy and Cassie trial. When I read through the text messages and the emails that Cassie and Diddy exchanged, what I saw, y'all, was that Cassie wanted to be chosen by Diddy so badly. I could sense the desperation because I've been that young woman, that naive young woman that wanted to be chosen. And so because I wanted to be chosen, I made a series of bad decisions and allowed myself to be captured. And in this way, Cassie did the same thing. She allowed herself to be captured by the predator because of her inner self-sabotaging nature. Now, some people would say, oh, well, it wasn't her fault and it's all his fault. And the only time I see it like that, y'all, and this may be an unpopular opinion, is if someone actually forces themselves on someone, right? So someone is forced against their will, like physically held and beaten and threatened and stuff like that. But what I saw from reading those messages was a young lady who was willing to do anything to be chosen, to be put on a pedestal. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I saw. So I also want to make it clear that this is not victim blaming, right? If someone is forcing themselves on another person, usurping another person's will, overpowering another person, that has nothing to do with that person's inner predator, rising up and causing self-sabotage. That's something completely different. I'm talking about situations where we walk into these things willingly and then stay in these really unhealthy, toxic patterns. So the author says, in order to contain this beast, the predator within us and without, outside of us, we need to allow ourselves to see the truth, honor our intuition and instincts, and resist the predator's seductions. Because sometimes the predator is very shiny, very alluring, and it takes a great deal of strength to walk away from that temptation. According to the author, this is what that toxic love cycle looks like. Here comes the charming predator, right? Here enters the predator. We ignore the warnings, our instincts, or intuition about the predator. Next, we downplay the red flags and actually romanticize the predator. So it could be someone who has a really bad temper, right? And this person gets really fiery or jealous and yells and screams, and you're like, oh, he's just so passionate about me. He must really love me so much, right? The next part of the cycle is the immature and naive part of us takes over, and we allow ourselves to be captured, and a piece of us dies. Now, here is where we get to make a choice, y'all. So for those women, for those of you listening who have been in this cycle, I know I have, there comes a choice point. And the author says at some point, The cycle repeats if we allow it to. So if someone has been through this cycle, the hope is at some point they get out of it. And then you have this opportunity to either allow yourself to be captured again, or if you're ready to see the truth, and if you're ready to become conscious of the predator within you and contain it, you no longer let it control you. So for me, at this point in my life, I'm so grateful to even be able to say this, because there was a point where I could not say this and, be speaking honestly. I'm at the point now where that inner predator, I do not let it control me. If I see something, I allow myself to see it, and I allow myself the opportunity to walk away from bad behaviors, to step outside of toxic love cycles. I'll just be like, nah. And even in one of the last situations I was in, I remember just telling the guy, like, look, I don't love you more than I love me. I love me more. And because I love me more, I won't deal with your bad behaviors. I don't have to. That's been a long time coming, though, to even be in that space where I can say, hey, I love me more than I love you. I don't care to be chosen by you. Like, I allow myself to see the truth. So I don't allow myself to be victimized anymore. And I don't allow my inner predator to put me in these negative, toxic cycles. Because again, I don't love anyone more than I love myself. So the way you break that toxic love cycle is by seeing the truth, right? Paying attention to your instincts, your intuition, to warnings. Allowing yourself to see red flags, see them clearly, not romanticizing the predator. You break that toxic love cycle by taking hold of and really working through those immature and naive parts of yourself that take over and cause you to self-sabotage. And you stop allowing yourself to be captured by predators. At some point, you just stop letting that happen to you. You're no longer allowing yourself to be victimized because you love yourself more than you love anyone else. In each episode, I'm going to share gorgeous guru prompts, which are questions for reflection or journaling prompts. Okay, you choose. So here are today's prompts. Describe a time when you ignored your intuition and allowed yourself to be captured by the predator. What excuses did you use to justify this behavior? What can you do differently next time to avoid allowing yourself to be captured? Want to continue this conversation? Join me on Instagram at The Gorgeous Guru Podcast. All one word, The Gorgeous Guru Podcast. And thank you so much for joining me today. You could have spent this time doing anything, but you decided to spend it with me, and I'm grateful. I hope you'll join me next time. Peace.